lefties were always supposed to be very skeptical of Big Pharma, right? And no, we know that they're basically a criminal organization, which is what Big Pharma really is. And they became the biggest defenders of Big Pharma. It was the weirdest thing.
We're sitting here, it's 2025. The start of the pandemic is now 5 years ago. Why 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 is it still part of your act? Why is it important to still talk about this? Shouldn't we just move on, Jenny?
Yeah,
Like, hey, we learned our lesson. Trump won the election. You know, isn't it time to move on? MoveOn.org.
people say that to me. They'll say, "Oh, you're still talking about COVID and ivermectin." I'm like, "Yeah, it's the biggest story of my entire life, by far. More people died, and there's excess deaths which aren't being talked about, and people are going to be suffering the effects of that vaccine. Just as Anthony Fauci said, it wouldn't be the first time we had a vaccine that looked good at first, and then 10 years down the line, 12 years, you're like, oh my God, what have we done? And so I was vaccine injured, and the doctors who treated me, I was treated by Pierre Corey and other doctors. And I asked them, like, so am I out of the woods? They go, well, we really won't know for another, 5 years. And I'm like, oh my God, so, and now there's a Yale study that just came out, and they found out that, and by the guy, the guy the doctor who treated me, uh, Dr. Yo is what I call, that was his moniker, but his last name is hard for me to pronounce. Dr. Yogandana. I don't know. It's hard for me to say. But anyway, he put me in a trial where he gave me ivermectin. That's what happened. I got vaccine injured. I tweeted about it, and I said, "Hey, it's been 5 weeks since my second jab, and I'm still sick as a dog. I'm exhausted. I have headaches. I have fevers. I have joint pain. Anybody else feeling this, right?" Oh, people got mad at me for tweeting that. Like, "Oh, don't, you're going to make people vaccine hesitant." And I'm like, "So this is an experimental medical treatment. You're supposed to. That's how science works. People report that they're." Anyway, so he put me in this study, and one of the first drugs was ivermectin, and that's what got me woken up. I said, "Hey, this is that horse paste," and he's like, "No," and he explained it to me
Yeah.
that if they couldn't get their emergency use authorization, so they had to make hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin uh, off limits, and they had to demonize it. And he said that before COVID, they were looking at ivermectin to cure cancer, which they're back to doing now. And
It's
he said,
allowed again. It's
"Yeah,
back in the Overton window.
hmm
It was shoved out, now back.
yeah." And that he said, he explained it to me. It's a Nobel Prize winning drug taken by billions of people, saved billions of lives, and I was like, "Oh, if they're lying about that, what else are they?" And they're lying about everything, right? And, so that's why so people are still, there's lots of people who died, a lot of they don't count the deaths. If you die within 14 days after, uh, you get vaccinated, right? They don't count that as, from the vaccine, and it's just they and, the VAERS, which is supposed to record, they knew when they did a study of VAERS, that's supposed to document all the people injured by vaccines. They figured out that it was like less than 10% of the people, I think it's even lower than that, of who are vaccine injured actually report to VAERS, right? And so they knew that wasn't a good system to keep track of all the vaccine. They've known that since like 2010, and they never decided to update or come up with a new system. But now RFK is talking about doing that. So
It's RFK entering the Trump administration is like maybe the most pointed, maybe him and Tulsi in particular. It's like the most pointed example of this fundamental transformation that's taking place. It's a completely, if you go back in time, even just 5 years ago, the notion that that would be the administration today is, it's like you're just a crazy person.
I mean, people, and I know a lot of people, I think, who have irrational hatred for RFK. I mean, I find his position on Israel Palestine odious, and I've challenged him on that. I've done videos about it. But in politics, in organizing, uh, one of the fundamental organizing tactic is you organize with people you disagree with vehemently on other things when you coalesce around a common idea. And I know that from being in anti-war organizing. And I remember we did an anti-war rally in Washington, D.C., and Code Pink wasn't going to participate, even though that's their whole point of their organization, because some of the speakers they disagreed with on their LGBTQ stances. And I'm like, yeah, well, this isn't an LGBTQ event, and you're not an LGBTQ organization. You're anti-war, and
But Pink's in the name, Jimmy, so that's kind of like
that's
adjacent, right?
That's not how this works. That's not how organizing works, right? And I gave him the example of Christian Smalls, who started the first union for Amazon on Staten Island. A black guy organized a bunch of Trump voters on Staten Island to start a union, and he didn't. I tell you how he didn't do it. He didn't go to the shop floor and say, "Hey, who here doesn't support LGBTQ? Okay, you're out. Who here's a gun nut? Okay, you're out. Who here agrees with me on immigration? You don't? You're out. Okay, now who's left? Let's organize against the man." That's not how it works. You go, this is the idea. We all have a shared economic interest. Let's organize around that interest. And that's how it works. And so I forget how I got off on this, but
it's the strange bedfellows, but they've gotten so much stranger. One of the things
about RFK.
Yeah, with RFK in particular.
It's amazing, right? Like, I've learned a lot from him, as COVID was an eye opener for me. I thought he was nuts, because that's what all you hear about in the media. I thought he's like, oh, he's this crazy anti-vaxxer. Then you look at the guy was a hero of the environmental movement for his whole life, right? He sued all these chemical companies and won. He sued Big Pharma and won over and over. And, Barack Obama, I found out, it was in 2008, was going to nominate him to be the head of the EPA. That's how fast they switched on him, because he started.
I didn't know that.
Yes. It's a headline in Politico. I saw it. I was like, you're kidding.
Of course.
And so that's how. And then there's videos I've seen of interviews with people like Joe Scarborough saying, yeah, my kid's vaccine injured too. He's autistic because of a vaccine. Talking with RFK Jr. And also Jon Stewart, talking with RFK Jr. about vaccine and kids and autism, and him saying, thank you for doing this. And then it all flipped, right? And that's just the power of Big Pharma. Why does Big Pharma advertise on cable news? It's not because they're actually trying to sell you those drugs. It's because they want to control the news media. So 70% of the cable news budget comes from Big Pharma. And so, it's just like, why does Boeing sponsor a segment Meet the Press? Yeah. Why do they have that? Oh, we're going to have our Boeing fact checker. Is anybody watching that in the market for a jet? Right? No, they're doing that because usually you're supposed to take advertising money, and that funds your investigation, right? So they're taking money from people they're supposed to be investigating and exposing, and so they're not funding their investigations, they're funding their non-investigations. And that's the same thing with Big Pharma. And that's why there was ubiquitous coverage of COVID, Joe Rogan, ivermectin, the vaccines, lockdown. You weren't allowed. It was like a totalitarian state. So the reason why I still talk about COVID is because it's the biggest story of my life, and by far. And also, it's going to happen again. Right now, the bird flu thing, it's funny how bird flu only affects chickens and cows. Isn't that weird? They're not killing ducks. They're not killing robins or sparrows or geese or seagulls.
Just the food supply.
Just the food supply. Isn't that interesting? Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. And then they're pushing bird flu vaccine. I'm sure Bill Gates has money in that. And then he, also manipulates the media. So people don't know any of that. And isn't he the biggest private farmland owner now? And he's always pushing people to eat fake meat because he's invested in fake meat. The guy's a megalomaniac, right? And people think he's an altruistic, guy doing philanthropy, but it's somebody coined the term. It's philanthrocapitalism. Every place you look where Bill Gates says he's trying to help people, he's invested in it. And he's got, he invested $50 million in Pfizer before COVID, and then he cashed out, and I think he made like 500. He got a big return. He made 500 million, right? And so as soon as he cashed out, he started on the vaccine. He started saying, yeah, well, it's not infection blocking. There's lots of problems with it. It's not long lasting, doesn't have durability. And we didn't know that at the time the COVID virus had a low fatality rate. It's kind of like the flu, and it only affects old people. That's what he said after he cashed out. And then he said, but the new thing is nasal vaccines where you spray it in, and those are really good. And I looked up, of course he's invested in the company making those nasal vaccines. And people look at Bill Gates, who, by the way, doesn't even have a college degree. Not only is he not a doctor or a virologist, that's what people tell, oh, Joe Rogan and you're not a doctor. Yeah, neither is Bill. At least I graduated college. Bill Gates didn't. And
I'm not sure if that's actually like a good sign or not that he did or didn't, but
right.
Fair enough.
So anyway, I just can't get over how people think because the news says he's a good guy and he wears a crew neck sweater. When the devil comes, he's not going to have horns and he's going to have a crew neck sweater and glasses.
If you like this clip, you should check out the full video and all the other great content we've got at Dad Saves America. So be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that bell so you won't miss our new stuff as it drops each week.